National Academy of Family Lawyers, Law Asia, the Pakistan Bar Council, and I already mentioned the Law High Court Bar Association. She told me that I shouldn't really read out the whole CV, and I'm afraid it's quite a dense and rich CV, and I'm quite aware that I'm already kind of beyond my 5 minutes. So it's my great pleasure to actually introduce you and hand over to Sulema. Please, thank you very much.
Thank you, Martin, for that very flattering introduction. Assalamu alaikum, good evening, Honorable Judge of the Supreme Court of Pakistan, Justice Qazi Faez, Honorable Judges, colleagues and friends. Thank you for inviting me to say a few words this evening. I want to start by wishing everyone a happy International Women's Day today. On this day, what is most pressing on my mind, and I'm sure many other minds, is the rights of our Afghan neighbors and sisters. We have seen horrendous stories come out of Afghanistan, and being neighbors, it has impacted us. When a girl child is sold in Afghanistan for food, the impact is not just felt in Afghanistan, but in Pakistan and around the world. On this day, I want to take a moment to salute our Afghan sisters for standing resolutely in the face of brute violence, even after world superpowers fled and abandoned them. I want to start by thanking our organizers, Bloomsbury Pakistan and the SOAS Pakistan Society. In particular, I would like to thank my dear friend Nadir Chima for his dedication in putting this event together. Bloomsbury Pakistan also co-hosted the first Asma Jahangir lecture that was delivered judiciary and judicial accountability, even in very challenging times. It is therefore no surprise to me that he's asked to speak on this topic, on the role of judiciary in upholding democratic rights and processes. Today's topic and speaker was independently chosen by the students at SOAS. We are here also to celebrate the legacy of my mother, Asma Jahangir. What she was admired and remembered throughout the world was in her ability to speak truth to power, and to speak truth to power at challenging times and very, very clearly. For her, it was not about personalities, but principles. Many thought that she was taking an unpopular stand, but she was committed to the principle. For example, when MQM leader Altaf Hussain was blacked out from appearing on any media channel, she defended him because she felt that his right to express himself was violated. Nowhere does our law state that an absconder, someone we don't like, someone we find we can't vote for, is not allowed to express himself or herself. We now see that even thrice elected Prime Minister Mian Nawaz Sharif, leader of one of the largest political parties of Pakistan, has been blacked out from the media. Similarly, Asma defended Hussain Haqqani in the Memogate case, as she felt that he was being denied due process on the pretext of fundamental rights, and that such a judicial precedent was dangerous for democratic rights and democratic processes. Ironically, the petitioner in that case, Mian Muhammad Nawaz Sharif, is now subjected to a similar fate. And what we have now is one of the worst times for freedom of expression in our country. The introduction of further penalties on free speech through an ordinance to pick our laws is undemocratic and chilling in the way it will impact fundamental rights. I ask, should such a law be upheld when it is used to prosecute and witch hunt political opponents? For Asma, no. Justice was not just interpreting what is written in our statute books, but upholding human dignity and equality. In our statute books, we even have punishments of stoning to death, of lashings, of amputations. Yet we have not seen such punishments being handed out by our judiciary. It's always shown us the generosity of his spirit in engaging with us with the same curiosity and respect as we undoubtedly have for him. And we are most thankful for that. Thank you. I now invite Justice Isa to deliver his.
Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful, I start with, and I extend my greetings to you all. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. First and foremost, I sincerely thank the organizers of today's event, SOAS Pakistan Society and Bloomsbury, Pakistan, for inviting me and extending me the honor of addressing you. This has also provided me with an opportunity to getting to know you, or some of you at least, and the added pleasure of visiting SOAS again after 14 years. This is where my daughter obtained her undergraduate LLB degree 14 years ago, and from here she went on to next door to do a LLM at UCL and a bar, making her the first woman to become a barrister from the province of Balochistan, my province in Pakistan. My father was the first barrister from Balochistan at a time when it was not easy to travel, catching a steamship from the port of Karachi. He came from Pishin, which is about 600 miles from Karachi, close to the border of Afghanistan. Then it was British Imperial India. So it was quite a journey to get here. And on the topic of International Women's Day, so I'll just, here too, sad to say, performance of Pakistan is abysmal. I'm a great believer in, there is no point in being the proverbial ostrich and ignore the problems. You must face up to the problems, you must realize what is wrong, and only then will you address the problem. And that is what we should do. And there is a global gender gap index, which is, I think, issued by the World Economic Forum in its Global Gender Gap Report of 2021. Out of 156 countries that it surveyed, Pakistan came close to the bottom at number 153. This is shocking for a country which gained independence through a progressive leadership in which women were very much involved and in leadership roles as well. The non-discriminatory equality principle, Doctor of Theology, but I think this is the only example of a main religion incorporating something which has been established by a woman, a ritual established by a woman. I would like to be corrected, but I have not been able to discover any so far. And then we have the great, I mean, it doesn't end, it's not in isolation. The most revered of women in the Holy Quran, Lady Maryam, may Allah be pleased with her, is mentioned 34 times in the Quran. The mother of Prophet Jesus Isa, much more than she is mentioned in the Bible. And then I would just, before concluding, refer to a hadith of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. And this is relevant again for the International Women's Day. However large the faith of man increases, his regard for women increases. I'll repeat it. However large the faith of man increases, his regard for women increases. So this is an integral part of the faith. And we must acknowledge great women like Asma Jahangir. And one thing which, if her daughter does not mind my saying so, she was a great troublemaker. And judges were terrified of her. So I say that in appreciation of her. So a bright future can only be secured when systems of oppression are dismantled, when gendered violence, misogyny, and abuse are punished in accordance with the law. Asma Jahangir had indeed set an example when she demonstrated that tyranny is not unsurmountable, The judiciary, like our electoral system, is a vehicle to secure the fundamental rights of all. The only future I would like to imagine is one in which persecution and autocracy ends. Thank you for patiently hearing me, and I once again want to thank the
My question is that judiciary is also part of the society, and so there is an evolution of people, the kind of judges that come up. You mentioned politicization of the judiciary, but there is yet another problem, which is corruption, which seems to have also seeped into the judiciary. I'm just wondering that what do you think that from 2007 onwards, how do you look at the judiciary? Are you satisfied? I mean, and how do you see what kind of institution it has evolved into? When one of the problems is that it sees itself, sets it up above all forms of accountability. Judges are very happy when they're not held accountable.
I think, like every other institution, maybe there are different viewpoints within the institution. Whether I'm satisfied or not, I think should not be important. The question should be whether you are satisfied, whether the people of Pakistan are satisfied. Sometimes I go you go to a shop or something, and at the end there's these smiley faces, were you properly served, etc. And then there's an unhappy face like this, a happy face like this. Maybe we should have some sort of thing outside the Supreme Court or the courts. I mean, were you satisfied? Were you dealt with properly? Personally, if a person is satisfied, that person has stopped living. You should never be satisfied, because then you stop striving. So it's not my satisfaction, it is whether, if I say I'm satisfied, and then you can criticize me that, okay, you haven't done this, that, the other, or I'm not satisfied, it doesn't really matter. It is the perception, the understanding, because the cases which get into the public domain are very few. There are hundreds of cases one decides which you know nothing about, which matter nothing to you. But the cases which come into the public eye are the ones which determine whereby you grade us. The other cases you would not even know what the case was about. I mean, that's the run-of-the-mill business that we do. So I would not want to ever be satisfied. If I was satisfied, I wouldn't be part of the judiciary. I won't be. So I think if I can do something, that's the only reason which took me to abandon my career virtually overnight. I was sent to Balochistan. I was asked, can you go there, because we don't have we don't have the judiciary there anymore. But if you recollect that they had taken oath under Dogar, and all of them resigned. So I went. I was the only judge in the High Court in Balochistan initially, and then appointed judges, including the first judge in the province's history, onto the Balochistan High Court, who went on to become the Chief Justice of the province as well, Justice Tahira Safdar. So, an evolution, yes. First of all, I think we must acknowledge mistakes, because unless you don't acknowledge mistakes, I would use. First of all, you should acknowledge what you don't know. Then you acknowledge mistakes. The famous hadith of the Prophet, to say I don't know is half of knowledge. So if we don't, we just kind of defend, every institution keeps defending themselves. That's not a strength of the institution, that's the weakness of the institution. So I don't know if I have answered. And as far as corruption is concerned, I think that is unforgivable in the judiciary, more so, I would say more so than any other institution in Pakistan. And why do I say that? Is because other institutions, you don't expect to be given justice, but then when you go to the court of law, you expect to be treated justly, honestly, and fairly. Again, I'll say something about myself which I feel a bit reluctant about. When I became Chief Justice in Balochistan, there were like 400 odd employees of the High Court, and I said, please treat the people with respect. Treat them as you are their host and they are your guests. And I told them the next thing. I said, no one comes to court happy. Everyone has a problem they come to. They don't want to see my face. They don't want to see your face. So please serve them. Please serve them. And I said, there is another place where people generally don't go for purposes of joy, and that's a hospital. But there too, there is an exception when a child is born. So I said, in our case, there is no exception. So I agree with you. There's much that one can improve upon, and I think that about wraps it up. I hope I've answered your question, Aisha Siddiqa Sahiba.